Stop translating. How to think in English and speak fluently. Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're diving deep into a question that I hear constantly from so many English learners. A question that truly gets to the heart of fluency. How can I finally stop translating in my head? And how do I genuinely start thinking directly in English? This is a common challenge, and I'm here to guide you through it. Perhaps you're at a point where you understand English quite well. You might have a solid grasp of grammar rules, and your vocabulary might be extensive. Yet, when the moment comes to actually speak, everything seems to slow down. You find yourself mentally translating every single sentence from your native language into English before you can utter a sound. Does that frustrating experience sound familiar to you? If so, you're certainly not alone, and this video is precisely what you need. In this comprehensive video, my aim is to clearly explain what thinking in English truly signifies, delving into what academic research actually reveals about this process. Most importantly, I'll provide you with a practical, step-by-step guide on how you can effectively train your brain to achieve this state of thinking directly in English. I'll also share my own personal journey and experiences from learning a second language to a fluent level, highlighting what truly made a difference for me. What thinking in English really means. So, what does thinking in English truly signify? At its core, it means that your brain gains the ability to access English words and phrases rapidly and automatically. There's no longer a need to painstakingly search for each word or phrase every single time you want to express yourself. It's all about direct, instant access. When you're constantly translating in your head, your brain essentially has to perform two separate tasks. First, you formulate the thought or idea in your native language. Then, after that initial step, you embark on the second task, actively searching for the equivalent English words and structures to convey that thought. This additional, often painstaking mental step consumes valuable time and mental energy, which is precisely why speaking can feel so agonizingly slow and incredibly difficult. Therefore, thinking directly in English essentially means streamlining this entire process, significantly reducing that mental effort and making communication much smoother and more spontaneous. What academic research actually shows? This is precisely where understanding the latest research can truly help us grasp what's happening inside our brains. A very recent study conducted in 2024 specifically investigated the factors that contribute to fluency when individuals speak a second language. The study itself has a rather lengthy and technical name, which I'll display on screen for those of you who might be interested in looking it up later. The researchers primarily focused on a concept known as cognitive fluency. Let me break this down in simpler terms for you. They examined how quickly and efficiently the brain can recognize, retrieve, and essentially bring back words and phrases in a non-native language. Here's what their fascinating findings revealed. They observed that some learners predominantly rely on what's called controlled processing. This means their brain consciously slows down, meticulously searching for the correct words and carefully evaluating different grammatical choices. On the other hand, other learners demonstrated a much higher degree of automatic processing. Their brains were able to recognize words significantly faster and retrieve them with noticeably less conscious effort. The most crucial outcome of this study was crystal clear. Learners who exhibited more automatic word access spoke at a faster pace and with considerably fewer pauses. Importantly, the study did not conclude that these speakers were inherently more intelligent or that they possessed a larger store of grammar and vocabulary. Not at all. Instead, it definitively showed that their brains were simply better trained to access English language components with remarkable speed and efficiency. So, when we engage in discussions about thinking in English, we are, in essence, talking about the proficiency and agility of your brain in finding and utilizing English words and phrases without the constant need to stop, analyze, and calculate. Why translation slows you down. Translation itself isn't inherently a bad thing. In fact, it's a completely normal part of the language learning journey, and in the initial stages, it can be incredibly useful as a bridge to understanding. However, problems arise when translation becomes your primary and default speaking strategy. The research we just discussed beautifully explains why this continuous translation feels so utterly draining. Controlled processing, the mental heavy lifting involved in constant translation, demands a significant amount of mental energy. This is precisely why, even if your speech is grammatically correct, it often comes out slowly, with noticeable hesitation, and can sound rather unnatural. The flow of conversation is constantly interrupted by your internal mental processes. True fluency flourishes and improves dramatically when the brain no longer needs to pause and scrutinize every single step of language production. It's about achieving a smooth, almost effortless stream of communication. When I embarked on learning my own second language, French, I initially translated absolutely everything. Every sentence, every fleeting thought, every single word had to pass through the filter of my native tongue. I could communicate, yes, but the process felt incredibly heavy, ponderous, and I constantly felt like I was lagging behind in conversations, struggling to keep up with the natural pace of interaction. What ultimately transformed everything for me was a combination of consistent repetition and extensive exposure to the language. I poured a tremendous amount of time into simply listening to French. I began to hear the same phrases, expressions, and sentence structures appearing again and again and again. Gradually, I stopped constructing sentences painstakingly, word by word. Instead, I started to unconsciously pick up and utilize ready-made patterns and chunks of French language. Slowly but surely, my brain began to adapt. This shift didn't occur because I forcibly tried to think in French. Nothing was forced. It happened organically because I used the language frequently, naturally, and immersed myself in it. How to train your brain to think in English. Now that we understand the why and the what, let's get down to the how. Let's talk about the truly practical, actionable advice you can begin implementing today to train your brain to think directly in English. 1. Work on collocations. Your brain, believe it or not, doesn't particularly enjoy isolated words or endless lists of vocabulary. As I often say, it thrives on predictable patterns. A collocation is essentially a combination of words that naturally and predictably go together. For instance, we say heavy rain, but we don't say big rain because it simply doesn't sound right or natural to a native speaker. Heavy and rain are partners. They belong together. When you make a conscious effort to learn phrases and collocations, such as make a decision, heavy rain, or take responsibility, your brain starts to anticipate the next word in the sequence. This anticipation significantly reduces the mental effort required and dramatically speeds up word retrieval, which is exactly what the research highlights as a key characteristic of fluent speakers. To help you get started, I've created a free PDF containing 100 essential English collocations. You can download it using the link in the description below and in the comments section. Make sure to learn and actively use them. 2. Use shadowing. Shadowing is a powerful technique that involves listening to spoken English and immediately repeating it out loud. The key here is immediate repetition. There's no time for translation, no space for analysis, just a direct, reactive response. This was one of the cornerstone techniques I personally employed to achieve fluency in French. Shadowing specifically trains your brain to transition from that energy-intensive, controlled processing to a more automatic, effortless mode of processing. This is precisely the shift we're aiming for to enable thinking in English. It builds not just linguistic fluency, but also muscle memory for speech. Furthermore, make it a point to speak as much English as you possibly can, whether you're practicing with a language partner or even just speaking aloud to yourself every day if feasible. Speaking, even if you make mistakes, compels your brain to find words faster, and this accelerated retrieval is the fundamental building block of both fluency and thinking directly in English. 3. Use English stories for input. This is exactly why I consistently publish 2 story videos every single month on this channel. When you engage with English stories, you don't need to understand every single word to benefit. In fact, comprehending around 60% or 70% of the content is often ideal. This level of understanding pushes your brain to actively predict meaning, utilize contextual clues, and intelligently fill in any gaps. This is a highly natural and effective way your brain learns to forge direct connections between ideas.
And English words, bypassing the need for translation altogether. You absolutely need consistent English input every single day. Make this a non-negotiable part of your routine. Setting realistic goals for thinking in English. Remember, thinking in English isn't like flipping a switch that instantly changes everything. It's a gradual, organic process of transformation. Some days you will inevitably find yourself translating, and other days you won't. This fluctuation is perfectly normal and part of the journey. The ultimate goal isn't immediate perfection, but rather a progressive reduction in mental effort and an increase in conversational flow. Try to keep that perspective in mind. So, to reiterate, thinking in English is far from a myth. I can personally attest to this because I now think naturally in my second language. Research unequivocally shows that fluency grows most effectively when your brain becomes faster and more efficient at accessing words. If you consistently train that speed through dedicated repetition, by internalizing predictable patterns, and through active, real-world use of the language, your brain will adapt. And one remarkable day, you won't be consciously thinking about English at all. You will simply be speaking it, effortlessly and naturally. As promised, I'll leave you with a link below this video to that free PDF containing 100 essential English collocations, ready for you to download and use. Additionally, you'll find a link to another video where I share even more details about the specific strategies and practices I use to achieve Fluency in my second language. If this video has provided you with valuable insights and genuinely helped you on your learning journey, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so I can continue to support and guide you further this year. I'll be looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care!